named one of Time Magazine's 100 most influential people in 2016, Ibtihaj remains an important figure in the larger global discussion regarding equity and its importance in sport. Her voice continues to unite both the sports and non-sports world. Tonight, Ibtihaj joins us for a conversation about what it means to pursue what she describes in her memoir as, quote, an unlikely American dream, as well as about how she navigates professional sports as a celebrity Black Muslim woman, about her feminist entrepreneurship as the founder of Luella, and about her children's book, wherein Ibtihaj insists, as does Berea College, that our differences are worth celebrating, writing, "My hijab is part of me." Welcome, Ibti.
Hi, Shadi. How are you?
Hi, it's so lovely to see you.
Nice to see you too. Thank you so much for that introduction. That was so nice.
Thank you and welcome. And if I may, Ramadan Mubarak.
Oh, Ramadan Kareem. I appreciate it.
So lovely to have you, especially in this time of the year. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the invitation, and it's nice to see a familiar face.
Likewise. We're so thrilled to welcome you at Berea College, a school founded, and I don't know how much you know this, but we're founded by radical abolitionists who believed in integration and coeducation. And so much of your story resonates with us. Our motto is to make of one blood all peoples of the earth. And with that in mind, I thought that we'd start with some questions that were student generated, if that works for you.
Oh, I love that. I love a change up.
So one student asks, out of all of your accomplishments, you've won an Olympic medal, you wrote a memoir, a children's book, have a Barbie designed after you, started your own fashion line. Which are you most excited about?
Oh, I don't know if I've ever received that question, but I don't know, for whatever reason, Barbie has always meant so much to me. And I know that sometimes dolls can get this really bad rap, and you have like these younger parents who are like anti-dolls, especially for their girls. But to me, action figures in general serve so much purpose in just providing limitless imagination for children. And when I played with my Barbies growing up, and they were such a big part of my life, it just allowed me to be anything, to do anything that I wanted, and to live in that mindset as a young person. So one thing that I didn't have as a kid, I didn't have access to Black Barbies. It was really hard to find when I was growing up. There were like maybe 2 or 3 in like the Toys R Us shelves, but it was tough. And like, so if you went to the toy store and you had the one Black doll on the shelf, for me, I went home with nothing. You know, my parents really saw value in providing dolls that looked like me and my sister, so that we could see the beauty, like see ourselves almost in the dolls that we played with. So to have a doll made in my likeness that is not only Black, you know, it's also Barbie's first Spencer. And I wanted my Barbie to be size inclusive. I didn't want this like stick figure size 0, you know, skinny long leg Barbie, because that's not a representation of who I am. You know, as a kid, I was made fun of for like having big legs, whatever that means. But I feel like these strong legs I worked really hard for, and that's what helped me win my Olympic medal. And I wanted kids to see that strength in the Barbie. I wanted my Barbie to obviously wear hijab. I wanted it to look like me, but I also wanted my Barbie to have like great eyelashes and like great eyebrows and all these things that make me me. And I just feel like it's such this cool, like full circle moment in my life where kids have the opportunity to shop a Barbie that, you know, really defies all these different misconceptions that people have, not just about athletes, but also about Muslim women.
That's very true. I also, as the feminist that I am, had 50 Barbies in my collection from garage sales growing up without hair. And just trying to find one that looked like me. And I remember how hard that was. And so I can imagine that for so many little girls, this, and boys and queer folk, this means a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's why I like to refer to my Barbie as, an action figure. I love when I see little boys playing with it, because this isn't about gender or like, gender identity. This is about us, trying to abandon those labels that society puts on athletes, puts on Muslim women. And even like as a Black fencer, that's rare in 2021. So I really want to help children see themselves in non-traditional spaces and help them just mentally understand that they can be and do anything.
Thank you. I so much of what Barbie means and so much of what you do is about feminist entrepreneurship.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder how you got into that, and Luella, and that's a kind of magic too, for little boys and girls and queer folk growing up who want to feel that they can inhabit multiple identities at the same time.
Well, I must say that I feel like there's a lot of privilege in even having the opportunity to start a small business. It's a very lofty thing to do. Like it's not easy. You have to have money to do it. And also access is a real thing. I started my clothing company, Luella, I think it was like 2012. And it was started out of what I saw as a necessity. There was a void in the US market for modest, fashionable clothing made here in the United States. When I was a kid, or as a teen, and we've all been there, super awkward, have no idea what to wear. We're still trying to find ourselves and our style and our identity and all those different things and what they mean. But as a Muslim girl, it was difficult for a multitude of reasons, right? I was a Black kid who wore hijab growing up in a white town outside of New York City. And even before I started to wear hijab, I didn't wear shorts. I didn't wear like tank tops. And so if I wanted to, wear a dress out to dinner or out with friends, whatever it was, I had to buy a spaghetti strap dress. You have to then buy like a cardigan to go over it, or like a long sleeve top to go underneath it. And then you still had to find hijab. So there were all these different things you had to buy to achieve this one look. And with Luella, the intention has always been to provide the modest community here in the United States with accessible clothing that is ethically made here in the United States. My sisters and I always want our pieces to be fashionable, and we want them to be affordable. And so that's kind of like the premise and the foundation of the company itself. It has grown so much, but I know that there's still so much more room to grow. And the reality is it's not an easy space. We know just through like this more recent lens into like what systemic oppression looks like, it is not easy being a Black business owner. I will say that. And as difficult as it is, I just feel like it's such a rewarding thing to know that I'm providing something for like my younger self, what I didn't have. And I just want to make modest dressing easier for people here in the States.
Knowing you and following you on social media, I know that you are a social justice advocate. Mm-hmm. And so much of what drives you is that. There's so much recent upheaval in our country and our world, especially around injustice for people of color, especially around anti-Blackness. And I wonder how you, what your thoughts are in general about how we get to a world where, as Berea wants it, we're all made of one blood.
This is something that, we've been fighting for 400 plus years in this country. And I understand that it's not something that will change overnight, but that has never deterred me from using my platform or using my voice. And I feel like what's most important to me is that everyone understands that this has to be a collective effort in order for there to be change. And it's going to take a lot to get there. But I do find that over the past year, especially as we saw some of the largest social justice movements in our nation's history, even around the globe. I mean, BLM was so strong and so effective over the summer that it had this ripple effect that we saw in, nations around the world. So what does that mean for us and like how we move forward? I think for me, the silver lining in all of this is that we have more people understand that this cannot solely fall on, or should not honestly fall on the backs of Black people and African Americans, right? This is not a problem that we created. But as difficult as it is to continue to see, now we have Dante, is that how I pronounce his name? Right? Who passed away the day before yesterday, who was, killed by a police officer in Minnesota. It's so hard to see. For me, I can't watch it. I don't want to hear clips of it on NPR. Like, I don't want to see this anymore. I want real change to happen. And part of that comes when we start to hold people accountable. We need policies that change the way we, hold the police officers accountable for these type of incidents that happen to African Americans. But I think the biggest thing that we've seen change, and I think the momentum is there, right? We just have to capitalize on it. We need real policy change to happen, and I need everyone to understand that this is a collective fight. So if you think that because you're not Black, this is not your problem, I would encourage you to change your mindset, because it's not true.
Ipti, I teach a class here called Gender, Sexuality, and Black Lives Matter. And we studied the Convo River Collective statement from the 1970s, that when Black women are free, the rest of the world will be free, because their freedom demands the end of all systems of oppression. And we try to think about how there's a hierarchy of racial difference. And that hierarchy is about who gets access to protection, right? Human recognitions and protections, the kind of valuation that would indicate that my life matters. And that for non-Black people of color, we have a lot of passing white privilege. I remember being in Durham in North Carolina at Duke, and I remember thinking of myself as a woman of color, having come from an area that was predominantly white. And I remember going to Women of Color Leadership Conference at NC State, and people looking at me and being like, what are you doing here? Like, I'm a woman of color, I run this organization, I'm here. Like, oh, you're not a woman of color. And I realized that in a room full of women who in that context were Black Americans, I had so much privilege, right? Whereas I walk into a room full of white people and there are no other people of color, and all of a sudden I become the container of their racial anxieties. And so I think that's why non-Black people have so much to gain from this fight, right? We have to put our lot in. We have to make Black Lives Matter first, because when Black Lives matter, everyone else's life will matter.
And also, I think it's really important to understand how deep-rooted racism is in this country. And without the fight of Black people, there would be no one else here, right? It was the movements, specifically the civil rights movement, of the 60s, that even allowed for the Immigration Act to follow. So, I mean, it's so layered, and a lot of it is understanding the history. So I appreciate the courses that you teach to help our young people understand how we have arrived at this place and how we still are fighting for just our right to exist, and even just the acknowledgement that we're human. I think that was, to me, the hardest part about hearing Dante Wright's mother, the conference that was held where she spoke. It was just hearing that for her, there was a lack of humanity in the way that the police officers saw her son. And to say that, it was a mistake, that someone shot him by mistake, it's like, that doesn't work anymore. We don't want to hear that you've made a mistake, especially as Derek Chauvin's court case is like happening in the exact same
his trial.
His trial is happening in the, sorry, I'm lost for words, but his trial is happening in the exact same moment. You say, oh, well, I made a mistake. Mistake, you've taken someone's life, someone's father, someone's son, someone's brother. It's hard. And I just feel like there's a level of exhaustion when it comes to the Black community. There's a level of exhaustion, and I'm just looking forward to like real meaningful change. And I don't know what that looks like. But to end qualified immunity, I think would be really big, because there would be a deterrent for police officers, and that they would know that there is very real consequence if I mistakenly shoot a Black person. If I mistakenly take someone's life, I will face consequences. Then maybe they won't do it.
I think so much of what makes change possible is the kind of work that you do. As someone who holds the very many positions you have in which you support young people trying to make their own way, but also as a celebrity Black woman who wears hijab in the Olympics. And so we have some questions from our students specifically about that, about how you got into fencing. Mm-hmm. And I know some of your story, but I know your mother was really, really involved in that, making that possible for you. I wonder if you could share that with our community.
Yeah, so I am from Maplewood, New Jersey. It's a small town about 30 minutes west of New York City. And I grew up with my mom, my dad. My dad's police officer, my mom teacher, both retired now, but I'm in the middle of 5 kids. And as African Americans, sport was just very, I would say, like centric to the way that our like family kind of operated. My parents didn't give me and my siblings a choice of whether or not we played sport. It was more so of like, which sport do you want to play? They saw so much value in not only us being active, but also being that I had working parents. My parents wanted to know where you were after school. So like you had to play a sport. And I said this a bit earlier, but when I was a kid, even before I wore hijab, I didn't wear tank tops. I didn't wear shorts. Like I would wear a t-shirt or like maybe like capris or something like that. But I like knew that once I wore hijab, I would only expose my face and my hands. So when I played softball or volleyball or tennis, like each of those different sports, my mom would always have to modify the uniform. So I spent a lot of time at like Dick's Sporting Goods or like Modell's buying a long sleeve top or a pair of spandex to go underneath the team uniform. And when I was 12 years old, my mom and I were literally in the car. We were at a stoplight, which was in front of the local high school, Columbia High School. And I wasn't yet in high school, but we look out just, sitting at the light, we see fencers in that school cafeteria. That's where they practiced at that time. And they were fully covered. They had long jackets, long pants, and they were, battling with swords. And I remember my mom saying, I don't know what that sport is, but when you get to high school, I want you to try it out. And my mom, like super resourceful, found like this fencing coach who gave lessons. And at 12, I took my first fencing lesson in this guy's garage in town. And my dad took me to the lesson, and my dad just thought it was so strange that the guy like kept having to adjust my body and, like put your shoulders back, make sure your arm is here and fix your feet and everything. And it was just so, I think, far outside of like the cultural norm. My dad grew up playing football. My mom like didn't play sports at all, so they had no idea. So my dad was like, I didn't really like it, but I did my own research and saw that the top 10 universities have fencing teams, and that's all I needed to know. I wanted to separate myself from other people when I would apply to college. So I tried out for the fencing team when I was a freshman. My friends, I coerced some of my friends into going to this tryout with me, and one look at the sea of kids in the room, and this is a big team. This is Columbia High School's largest team. There are over 100 kids on the team. And my friends saw no Black people and they were like, absolutely not. They were like, there's no way we're doing this. And for me, I was like, well, you'll see, I'm going to a good college. And I just kind of stuck with it. I was obsessed with this team. It was more like a family than it was a team. It was super successful. It was the best team in the country, or sorry, in the state, but arguably the best team in the country. Someone, I'm sure from New Jersey, said this, but I've heard that there's more fencers, like, I don't know, there's more fencers per square foot in the state of New Jersey than anywhere else in the world. There's like over 90 high schools that have it. So very, very popular in my state. And I was part of this state championship program that really made me feel like myself. You know, there was no, I was Muslim or I was Black. It was really just about how good I could be in the sport. And even before I was actually any good, I always was made to feel a part of the team. And I think I just really appreciated that. And to be honest, as an athlete, once I put my mask on, I just felt like a superhero. Like there was no gender, there was no race, there was no religion, like ethnicity, there was nothing. It was strictly about how good you could be. And to me, that's the foundation of sport. It has this unique ability to bring people from different spaces under this umbrella of, you know, this one sport that you're playing. And I just kind of fell in love with getting better, not with the sport itself. I think I just like the thrill of getting better. And long story short, I ended up going to Duke. I fenced there for 3 years, hated the team, don't tell anyone. Didn't fence my senior year, graduated from Duke in the middle of a recession, as Shadi knows, very difficult. Couldn't find a job and started fencing again. Convinced my parents to put some money together, send me to a World Cup. Started really, really, really training in the hopes of changing Team USA and what that looked like. I became the first woman of color on the US women's saber team. I went to, I don't even know, 6 or 7 world championships, won a bunch of medals, and ended up qualifying for the Olympic team in 2016, where my team won a bronze medal. And yeah, that's like the long, short version of the story. How I got into fencing, what kept me there was just a chase to the top. I went on to become like, I think number 7 in the world. And it was crazy because I started like number 220th in the world. So quite the trajectory, but a lot of hard work and just like self-determination.
One of our students, so the students who compile these questions are students who are programmers for the Women's and Gender Studies Department, and what we'll be launching as the Bell Hook Center imminently. And we're currently run as doing kind of social justice programming. And they wanted to know if what you experience as being a celebrity Black Muslim woman, how that changes your relationship with Islam, if at all, or with your gender or race, or with it all, if at all, and if you ever feel tokenized in any way, in ways that impact you.
First of all, I have to say, I do not consider myself a celebrity by any stretch of the imagination. I don't know if I've ever felt tokenized, and that's because I understand how my hijab has had the power to change how people treat me. I understand how my skin color has had the power to change how people treat me. And within a sport that can inherently be misogynistic sometimes, I understand how my gender has the ability to change how people treat me. So in this journey in trying to become better as an athlete, to qualify for world championships and these national teams, and, you know, hope, like then also an Olympic team, there were so many hurdles. Like the entire journey was just riddled with these obstacles, sometimes with intention. You know, there were people who did not want me to succeed and did what they thought they could do to prevent me from being successful or try to force me out of the sport. And when we look at the demographics within the sport of fencing, I'm literally the only one, right, who has been able to find myself on a national team. Like, I'm the first woman of color and certainly the first Muslim woman, but that to me is a problem. And we have to celebrate first. We have to continue to do that. Now, there were a lot of firsts that happened at the last Olympic Games. We had, first African-American to win an Olympic medal in swimming for women. We had first for African-Americans in gymnastics, and all these different things we have to celebrate, because we have to also remember the things that were law, things that were put in place that made it unlawful for someone like me to exist in the sport or in the pool or, at the gymnastics club or whatever it is. So I believe it's important to celebrate first. I don't see it as tokenism in any way. I see it more so as the opportunity to acknowledge the barriers that we've had to transcend in order to arrive at where we are now, but also to let our youth know that this is a space where they're welcome and that they can be successful as well.
So sorry, I think I misspoke. The student was asking if anyone had ever made you feel tokenized, not that you were tokenized. So I'm sorry.
I think that the answer still stays the same though.
Yeah. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I of everything that you have accomplished, and I think so much of what you've just said is about the power of representation, right? The power of someone being able to turn on the television and see someone who looks like them, whether as a Barbie, right, or whether as an Olympian, or an advocate, or someone who works as an ambassador of sorts. So of all of these things, I know we talked about what's been the most exciting for you, but what's been the most rewarding, and what's been the most challenging, and what's next?
Yeah. Well, I know that I was a member of the U.S. national team since 2010. And before, I think that real race to the Olympic Games in 2016, I think that's what kind of pushed that very public image of being a visible Muslim woman within the sport of fencing. And I do think that the Olympic medal definitely elevated that as well. So I'm appreciative, I think, of having that icing on the cake. For me, the real shining moment, and what I think of as having been the most rewarding part of the journey, was qualifying for the Olympic team. And that's because I was told throughout my career that, I didn't have what it takes to do it, that people thought that I was too old because I was starting off my, international career in my early 20s, because I hadn't ever qualified for a cadet or junior team. I didn't have the experience to fence on the senior level or make a senior team. As Black athletes, we're often labeled as being strong, but not having the tactical ability, or just lacking the ability to think through, a match point tactically, which is horrible when you think about a sport like fencing that is so such a mental game, such a tactical game. It's like a physical game of chess that we're playing. And so to be told that you don't have what it takes because we are labeling you as not intelligent because you're Black, obviously inherently racist, but that's the things that I was told as an athlete. So there was so much that I had to hurdle over, these hurdles, these very real things that I had to overcome in order to make it. And I talk very vividly and candidly about some of these obstacles, whether it be, our team manager intentionally not booking a flight or booking hotel, or, being ridiculed for wanting to pray, which is obligatory for me as a Muslim woman, and being made fun of for being Muslim, just really small things that someone may say, that's something you can totally get over. But at what point is it harassment, right? And at what point do we say, enough is enough, right? Like, we shouldn't have to put up with these things, especially as African Americans. It is really difficult to be constantly labeled and called out for being different. So I wanted to write my book to I think expose the underbelly of what professional sport can look like, especially a small sport like fencing, but also to give light, to show a story of resilience and really like what's capable. So to me, like, the cake was the journey and qualifying for the Olympics, and the medal, I guess, was just icing on top of that. And I never expected to win an Olympic medal, but I appreciate that it did kind of elevate my brand in a way that allows me to reach more people and really use my platform in a way that's important to me, and that's like through my advocacy work.
What's the most important part of your advocacy work? Or for most meaningful for you?
I think what's most meaningful for me has just been to really be intentional about what I post and what I share, because I never wanted to look or feel like performative. I only post, and this is what I love about social media, and like, you have true ownership of your own platform. I mean, I guess as far as like what Facebook and Instagram will give us, but I'm allowed to post like what I want, and I get to control the things that are on my page. Like, I block and delete people all the time. I think it was like Cameron who recently said that he blocked 200,000 people, and someone was like, I don't believe it. And I'm like, no, I believe it, because I block people all the time. I give you you get one chance to step outside of what I deem is appropriate on my page. And after that, I just block people, because I want to protect my mental space and also the people who follow me. Like, this is not a space for trolls. This is not a space to be mean. And yeah, I mean, I think that that's what I like most about social media, is that it's an opportunity for you to speak to your followers and to talk about the things that are important to you, to have meaningful conversations. And I think that that's a gift. That's something that we didn't have a few years ago, right? I mean, yeah, you had blogs, or even before like Instagram and stuff, I guess you could tweet, but this, I don't know, like, there's real power in images and videos and being able to express your ideas and things that are important to you, not just visually, but also in a way that you can articulate them through videos.
I couldn't agree with you more. I am, and I'm thinking about these videos, right, that we share and we share and we share. And I'm thinking about something you said earlier about just not being able to watch the videos anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And so I study a scholar named Saidiya Hartman, who argues that these are scenes of subjection, mm-hmm. and they are inherited from the lynching scene. And as a non-Black people, we like chomp at the bit for these images and videos. Mm-hmm. And rather than evidence to us Black humanity, because this is the trillionth video, don't we get it by now? Yeah. It's just a re-traumatization. So how do we participate in social media, right, during this moment of wanting to be social media advocates and activists, mm-hmm. and participate in this commerce and traffic and these kinds of stories, for example, about Black Lives Matter, without re-traumatizing people, right, and without it being performative?
Yeah. That's a good question, and I would love to hear your take. I find social media to be too much sometimes. So I'm like, I'll take breaks and also I'm that person who will go on my page and then get off. Like, I don't scroll for hours. Like, I think my time is very valuable. So I'm not going to scroll for hours. I don't always see the random videos that people post, because I feel like it takes away from my mental health, and it also takes away from my time. But that is a really good question, right? How do we push back against senseless, acts of violence towards the Black community without re-traumatizing us in a way? I don't know, because I think it's important that these situations are recorded, because historically they weren't. So we have people who have no idea what that Black people were strung up from trees, tarred, feathered, babies cut out of our bodies, or like stripped of our genitalia. And people would have picnics around this and like watch it happen. There are people who don't know that, which is crazy to me. But this is like modern day lynching. This is what we're seeing it happen in real time. And I think that we have to understand that when we hear the word history, we think that it wasn't that long ago, but lynchings are happening every single day. And it doesn't have to include tar. It doesn't have to include a noose in order for it to be lynching.
Sadia also argues that Black people live in a consistent state of terror because of that lynching scene. Mm-hmm. So I think of Michael Brown, right? Left on the street to die for 4.5 hours. Mm-hmm. They didn't even bother fully covering his body, as if to state as a warning, right? As a sign of terror to the Black neighborhood that lived there, know your place. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah, I was reading in the news today about, I think it was like someone in the army or something like that, and how his superiors, as a form of punishment for speaking out of turn or something like that, made him wear this really heavy chain. And he tried to drag the chain and was told that, no, you have to wear it around your neck. And this went on for a long period of time. He like pushed back against them and said, he thinks that this is an inappropriate form of punishment for something that he said. But he was Black, his superiors were white, and he, has very real trauma. He felt like they were trying to make an example of him, that this was reminiscent of what slave plantation owners would do to slaves, particularly Black men.
The coffle.
Right. And it's I don't know, it saddens me that this kind of stuff is still happening. And without social media, without us being able to see it front and center, on and as headline news, we wouldn't know that this is happening. So I think that it's, that there's two sides of the coin. It's traumatizing, but I think that it's important that people understand that this is very real and this is happening now.
I couldn't agree with you more. I just started a Twitter account for that reason.
I have a Twitter account. I never tweet.
No, I wanted to say one thing that I so admire about your social media presence is that it doesn't look manufactured and curated. It's very authentic. Mm-hmm. And you can tell people are engaging you, not some PR person acting as you. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. Having accomplished everything you have, being the authentic, generous person that you are, being the talent that you are, I wonder what advice you have for young women and femmes of color who are also likely to be firsts in their field.
I would say to be, unapologetic and to also like live in the moment. I think that as an athlete, what was most, I would say like pivotal moment in my career was when I made the decision to abandon other people's expectations or really things that just weren't in my control. Like I couldn't control whether or not the national coach would mistreat me or whether or not my teammates like me or the referees were going to give me, a fair shake in my match. I couldn't control any of those things, but I could control how hard I worked and developing my craft and also my own happiness, which is a really, really, I think, big piece of the puzzle. So I would just say to like, keep your head down and continue to work hard and to challenge yourself, right? To be better than you were the previous day. Like I've never been, I think, comfortable at where I've been in life. I'm always looking forward to what's next, how I could be better, how I could show up as a better agent of change in this world. And I think that that's super important because then your life isn't so self-serving, like this is about, or I think that for all of us, we should really consider how the things that are important to us and the work that we want to do, how we can use those things as a tool to just be better humans and in turn, change the world for the better.
What is your happiness, if I may ask? Where is your place of happy? How do you cultivate that being so busy?
Yeah. Well, I think that quarantine and like COVID have really helped me understand what makes me truly happy. And it wasn't traveling 50,000 miles in a year. It was spending time with my family. Like I live on the opposite side of the country as my family. Like they're in New Jersey, I'm in Los Angeles. And I think that COVID has helped me understand that I am truly happy when I'm with my family. So if I got anything out of COVID, it was that I really, really value the time I get to spend with them.
I'm from California, so I'm a little jealous because you're where my family is.
No, and it's so nice. Like my family's always like, what's the weather like? And I'm like, it's same, it's nice. It's a weird question. It's always nice.
We have some lingering questions from the audience. Dr. Andrea Woodward in sociology at Berea asks, you write movingly about your faith being a source of strength through the adversity you experienced on your team. Can you say more about that and how you found the strength to navigate the team dynamics? Do you see those dynamics changing for other athletes?
Fencing poses kind of this really unique situation in that it is an individual sport first, and then you kind of have a team event, so you kind of have to rally together. But there are only 3 spots on Team USA. And at the end of the qualification season, whether it's for World Championships or even for the Olympics, you want to be in those top 3 spots when the chips fall. So it creates this contentious environment where you not only want to be, you want to best the competitors at a World Cup from other nations, but at the end of the day, you just want to come out on top no matter what country, these other athletes are from. So I felt that kind of contentious environment throughout my career on Team USA. And to be honest, I didn't really feel it until I started to beat my teammates, to be completely frank. And when you are, I think, just floating and yeah, you're on the team, but you're not challenging those on top. I wasn't deemed as like any sort of competition, but as I started to get better and better and, become higher and higher ranked in the world, I just found that there was like a lot of pushback in my existence. And to be honest, sometimes it could be really small. Like if we have team meeting and say we lose the gold medal match to Ukraine, we'll watch team video for hours and the national coach will make sure that when he's talking about my matches, it's all negative. There's no positive feedback. But with my teammates, it's like, oh, that was a great action. Like, do you see what she did here? And it was, I think, sometimes really small things like that, but other times really big, egregious things like not booking my flight. Like everybody's flights were always booked by, say, like the team manager or hotel or something like that. And sometimes mine just wouldn't be done. So in order to save myself from going off the deep end, I just decided that I was not going to rely on anyone else when it came to booking things or even just kind of learning to tune out the negative comments or sometimes discriminatory comments or hateful comments, not being invited to team dinner, just really small, like catty things like that, that I feel like I've seen over the years cause people not to want to be in that space anymore and maybe can push them into leaving sport. And for me, I just felt like I'm not going to allow anyone to dictate that for me. And when you spend so much time on the road, I'm talking like 12 to 15 countries a year, I would spend a lot of time alone. And I felt like my faith was the one thing I was able to do that kept me connected to home. And I don't know, I felt like I just kind of grew closer to my faith and just kind of renewing that relationship with God, especially when I was fasting during Ramadan, like at world championships, like in random countries like Germany or Russia or Poland, wherever I was. I just felt like that was the one thing that kind of connected me to home. And especially during like a religious month like Ramadan, when you spend so much time in prayer, or it's just such a community driven religious month, that I felt like the one thing that kind of kept me grounded was holding on to that rope of faith.
Thank you. What's something that you wish more people knew about you, or that you wish we would have asked?
Oh, I don't know. I think that I'm an open book. I don't keep very many secrets on social media. I honestly feel like I'm living my social existence very authentically. I don't know. I like to think that I'm funny. I don't know if that like relays itself on my social media, but I think that I'm funny. I love to laugh. So I love being around anyone that likes to laugh and just like have fun. I feel like I'm a super laid back person. I don't do well with anxious people. I'm just very, like, I think, chill.
What is, if I may get personal, what is a favorite memory from Duke, if I may ask, from our Duke days?
From our Duke days. Favorite memory of Duke. I still keep in touch with like one or two people. Do you remember Buki? No? Oh man. Anyway, one of our Duke people, her sister is like a famous stylist out here, and she's one of my close friends. But favorite memory of Duke, I would say probably the Muslim Student Association. Like, you know how difficult it was to be on campus with students from all over, but you could sense the privilege at Duke. Like, it felt very polarizing, where you could kind of see students forming groups around just their like around like racial constructs almost, where you could kind of see the Black students like forming, and you could see like the Asian students. And I don't know, I didn't grow up in a space like that. So I just felt there was a huge culture shock when I got there. I was the only student who wore hijab. So, and that wasn't just our year, that was like all over campus. There were no other kids who wore hijab, which I don't think I was ready for. So to not feel connected to any of those groups that were forming was difficult for me. As someone who is African American and Muslim, you're not Black enough for the Black community, you're not Muslim enough for the Muslim community. So that was just really hard. And I was also a student athlete, which is its own curveball, because no one understands why you're spending so much time working out and training, and then you have to spend just as much time as everyone else, studying. So I don't know. I just think that for me, the Muslim Student Association kept me grounded religiously, and also gave me the small social outlet on Friday nights. So yeah, I would probably say MSA. That was a long answer.
No, the reason I asked is because I wonder how, what advice you might have for those in our community who don't feel like they belong. Mm-hmm. There's, we have a very inclusive campus and very inclusive ethos, but we still live in Eastern Kentucky, and there are people who get harassed for Black Lives Matter protests, mm-hmm. or for being visually queer and walking across the street. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, there are members of our own community who don't understand, and, who we have to work hard to educate and to call in. Mm-hmm. So say you were a college student today, what do you wish you would have known, and what message do you have for our students?
I wish that I had attempted to like join more groups, and not necessarily and that doesn't mean that you have to like spearhead every group, right? You don't have to be like I don't know, the president of or VP of or anything like that. I just really wish that I took advantage of the diversity that existed on campus. Like looking back, I think that there was a lot of opportunity to learn more about, different cultures and different things that now I'm learning about as an adult. But I feel like there was opportunity on campus. I just, as a student athlete, I don't know if I necessarily had the time. But if I could do things a little bit differently, I feel like I would have tried to make time to I don't know, go to different organization like meetings and things like that. Just take advantage of what was within my reach on this bubble of a campus.
Thank you so much, Ipti. We have been so lucky to be in conversation with you this evening. Thank you so much for your time. I think Tomas has a few parting words before we sign off.
Thanks, Shadi. Nice to see you.
Thank you, Ipti. So good to see you.
Hello, everyone. Hi, Ibtihaj. So good to see you. Well, I want to thank you so much for being with us this hour. It was really wonderful to listen to you. And so, yeah, it's great to see you. And it's still, I see it's still afternoon in California. So thank you so much, Dr. M. Shadi Malaklu, for your moderation and for asking the questions so great. And of course, behind the scenes, so to speak, our AV engineer, Kyle Wooten, who made this technically possible. So thank you so much, Kyle. And well, we'll be back in 2 weeks from now for another convocation, same time. And well, until then, I wish you all, well, good afternoon in California, good evening here in Kentucky, and take care and stay safe.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Ipti. Thank you. Have a great
Thank you so much,
evening.
Okay.
Thank you. One of my favorite conversations. So I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thanks. Have a good
Have
night.
a good one. Okay.
Yeah.
Bye-bye, everyone. Goodbye.